What's up, everybody? Today I got a quick video for you. We're going to be talking about camera settings and what I prefer and my preferences and what you should consider if you are trying to get your shot looking a little bit better. All right, we might have some ambient semi-truck audio going on in the background. Who knows? Sounds like it's going away. So let's get on with the video and let's talk about camera settings. Mainly what my camera settings are for YouTube and a video like this. So I think one of the first things I want to touch on is lighting and the importance of the lighting and how that affects the shot and what I can do because of the quality of lighting that I have going on here. So in this shot, I have an Amaran 200X that is my key light, lighting me up, doing its thing. In the background, I have above the shot, you can't see them, but I have some, let me show you guys. Up there, there's some Nanoleafs. And those Nanoleafs aren't doing too much, but they're giving me just a little bit of backlight and kind of lighting up my scene back here. Then we got this guy over here on the side, and that is going to be an LED light bar. That's just to give some touch and feel, just giving a little moment, you know, sprinkling some light in there. But that's not too important. You could honestly do without that light, but I just think it gives an extra touch and it looks pretty cool. The things that this does, and mainly what the key light is doing for me here, is that is giving me such an even, diffused light that just looks so good that it allows me to keep my camera settings where I want them to be. And the reason that I bring that up is because previously I had not as good of lights. I had some cheap fluorescent bulb lights that I was using, and that would still cause me to have to use 2, if not 3 lights. I used to use 2 of these fluorescent bulb softbox lights plus a ring light, and I was, you know, having them on full blast and just not really achieving what I wanted. Versus with this light, I can have a single light, gives me the lighting that I want and keep my settings in control. So let's talk about, you know, those general settings, what they mean, and where I have them currently at. With this even lighting, what it allows me to do is keep my ISO down. And what your ISO is doing is that is artificial lighting. And what that does is it basically, your camera gets those pixels in your image and it's brightening them within the camera. So it's artificial light being added onto your pixels to make the image brighter. Sounds cool, right? Yes, it is cool and it is very useful at times, but if you allow your ISO to get too high, it's going to put so much grain and make your image look all nasty and gross, and you overall you don't want your ISO too high. So depending on the quality of your camera, you can have a much higher ISO on some cameras than others. Some you don't want to go past, you know, 800, 1000 before it starts to distort your image too much, versus other cameras where you can get super high into the thousands and your camera will still hold a great image. But the ability to just stay at a 100 ISO due to me lighting the subject properly is amazing, which this contributes to the next couple things. Right now, I have a 1.6 aperture, 1.6, because I would like a little bit of bokeh. Having a lower aperture, what that will do is give you a bit more blur. And you can see if I was to move into the camera and become really close now, you'll see how blurry that gets into the background. So if I move back here, gives you a bit more definition on the back, move forward, blurs out the background, looks super cool, looks more cinematic. I like the way that having, and I think everyone likes the way, it's how you see it in movies, it's how you see it on YouTube now. It's the standard, right? It's, you got that nice crispy, for some reason that sounded weird coming out of my mouth. Crispy background, looks nice and smooth. It looks good. It looks professional and it looks nice. And that has to do with the lens that you have specifically. The lens will affect how much aperture and how smooth you can have your background getting. But, you know, having good lighting allows me to have a high aperture. And overall looks super good. The next thing that I want to touch on is the shutter speed. Shutter speed is one of those things affects a lot about your shot. A lot of people just kind of set it to whatever. A lot of people will use your shutter speed to adjust on brightness, especially outside. A lot of people will crank your shutter speed down so that you can get the shot to be less bright, especially when you're shooting outside. But the shutter speed does have a calculation, and especially when you're shooting shots like this for YouTube, so it looks natural as if you were talking to me face to face. We want it to look very natural. And the way that you get that is by having a shutter speed that is 2 times the frame rate that you're shooting at. So for a video like this, I'd be shooting in 24 frames. So I want a shutter speed of at least 50, which is currently what I have it set to. 24 times 2. Obviously we can't get it right to 50, but it's 48. So closest shutter speed we got, 50. What that allows it to do is just have a very smooth look and feel to my shots. Whether if I had a shutter speed that was too slow, it would look a little bit choppy and like a bit more jittery. But having that double the frame rate shutter speed, it allows it to have a nice crispy, smooth look, and it looks very natural. Those are basically my settings. As far as my Kelvin, let's take a look. It's because I do have my key light, so I don't need to adjust my Kelvin. I can really stay in that daylight zone because my lights are set to it. So whatever, if you have lights where you can set the Kelvin units, or you can figure out what the Kelvin units are on your lights, you can basically match your camera to your lights. On my light dome, I have it set to 6500, which is daylight, and 47 here. I wanted something just a tad bit warmer, so hence the reason why I don't have my camera settings so cool. I wanted to put a little bit of warmth naturally because that's what I do in post. So I just did it right in camera, but that's up to personal preference. But honestly, I don't think that there is a set rule. There are certain things, and I think it's important that you know what standard or what makes a shot like a shot's composition look well. I think it's important to have a good shot composition, and then you can play outside the boundaries. But first you need to know how to play inside its boundaries and know what the fundamental things are, to then branch out and start becoming creative and trying to change, make the shot look choppy because maybe you're trying to make the scene or shot look uncomfortable or unnatural, and that's totally fine. That's something very cool, and what a lot of people will do. They'll play with the camera settings to then affect the way a shot looks or make you feel. Because if you have a very unsettling or super blue and choppy shot, it might give you an unsettling feeling or a sad feeling, or a warmer shot where it will invoke happier feelings. It's a way to play with people's emotions. So that is something to consider. Nothing crazy, pretty simple, but important. I think a lot of people undervalue or don't revisit this topic. I have been shooting and making videos for a couple years now, and this is always something that I need to touch on. It's always cool to see how a different photographer, videographer will think about, these basic settings, but they're so fundamental to everything. Anytime you pick up a camera that isn't your iPhone or your smartphone, you're going to have to set up your ISO, what your Kelvin is set to, what your color temperature is, your aperture, your shutter speed. If you're shooting video, how many frames you're shooting at. Like, these are all things that you have to consider prior to shooting. And if you're shooting in one of the automatic modes, I would say get off that, switch it to M, put it on manual, and learn to play with your manual settings, and that will make you a better videographer or photographer. But yeah, guys, thank you guys for watching this video. I appreciate you all, and I hope to see you in the next one. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, throw it in the comments if I missed anything or you have any additional questions. I'd love to reply back to you guys. But you guys have a good one, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace!